Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian, and I'm here with Mike J, and this is the return of the Nerdcast, at least for the foreseeable future. This may change, but what we're going to try and do on the Nerdcast is essentially like talk a little bit about kind of things happening in our popular culture, the sort of geek sphere, our hobbies, our interests, and if there is an opportunity to talk about something that's sort of related to our normal issues, I'll try and bring that in as well. Because I do think that it's the culture war is really important, and I think the culture needs to be fought for, and so some of that means that we have to still take pleasure in these things, like when I guess it's like you know when it's viable, but also if there's something wrong or criticism, we should be able to make it. So that's the kind of thing I want to do with the Nerdcast um, on the show. And so I welcome you guys. And if you're not into the kind of like things that we talk about, which is like film, television, video games, and other kind of related things, then I hope that you'll hang around anyway, because I do think that, like I said before, cultural things matter. They shape the way that we view our world, and the way that we sort of like think about, the morality to some degree. It does have an effect on that, as strange as that might sound. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get into it. So one of the first things that, like, when I proposed this to Mike, is that he mentioned Overwatch 2, which is it's a video game that I used to play a lot of. The first one, I mean. I bought it when it first released, and Lindsay and I played it together like almost every night. And the reason was because she was like, we were talking to each other and we were dating and stuff, but she lived in Canada and I lived in the States. So we didn't have like a lot of ways for us to spend time together, unless we were just chatting online, which we did do, but sometimes that gets boring. And so she bought, Overwatch, and I bought Overwatch, and we started playing it together. And it was, some of my best memories are actually playing that game with Lindsay. And we both got really into it, like to the point where she was playing competitively and all that. And it was fun. So basically, Overwatch is like what is it? A hero shooter, I guess. So kind of like,
Yeah,
I would
I've
just,
heard it. I've heard people call it like a first-person arena game.
yeah. Isn't it like a lot like Team Fortress 2? I mean,
Shockingly so. That was the comparison a lot of people had. That was the comparison I had when I first started playing it. Because like a lot of my friends who were big into TF2 were like, "Yeah, we're going to give this a shot." And I remember like the beta was amazing. It was such a fun time. Then the game came out, and for the first while there, it was a pretty big player base. It's definitely
hmm
shrunk a lot more, but that's a lot of stuff related to how Blizzard ran things. But we can get into that later. But yeah, for the first year, it was amazing.
yeah, we probably played it for the first maybe 2 years, or I'm not sure how long it was at its height. But well, I mean, I was playing it every night, like with Lindsay, right? It was like how we hung out, you know. And yeah, it's basically like Team Fortress 2, except that instead of classes, they had characters, but essentially they worked the same way. And you had to use all their tools to essentially work with the team to win matches, which it usually involves like capturing a point, or it
Um,
involves
Pushing an object from one place to the other,
yeah,
or
like escorting an object from one place to another.
they brought
um
back capture the flag, but that's like something almost nobody plays, which is
yeah,
a shame because it's one of my favorite modes.
yeah, there was capture the flag. And yeah, so very fun game. So Blizzard, I don't know what they've been up to, but like there have been problems.
Lawsuits,
Yeah.
Brian. That's
Well, that's what I was gonna, because it seems like you know a little bit more about it. I know that they had some problems with Warcraft 3. They had problems with World of Warcraft. They had problems with Diablo. Um, and so some of their other franchises. But Overwatch 2 is coming very soon. And I wanted to ask Mike about the differences. So we were talking a little bit about this before we started, but I thought, no, maybe I'll just ask you on the air. So I guess, like, what are the differences between the original Overwatch game and this one?
well, the biggest difference that they've made is they shrunk down the team roster. Well, that's not a good way to say that. Let me change that. That was a bad way to phrase it. They've shrunken down the size of each match.
Okay.
So before it was a 12-man 6v6.
Yeah.
Now it's a 10-man 5v5.
Oh, so they've reduced the size of the teams by one.
And it's specifically, they said, to have one less tank on the battlefield.
Oh.
Because they said that the originally it was a 2-2-2 system.
Yeah.
2 DPS, 2 tanks, 2 healers. And the problem with that, though, that they said that they experienced was it created too much of a stalemate-y sort of system.
Like a defensive type of setup. So you had people, because tanks, in case you guys don't know, they're essentially supposed to either soak hits or protect other players. It depends on the tank because they all have different abilities. But yeah. So if you have like 2 tanks, then it turns into like a heavily defense oriented game, which makes the games probably drag out.
Yeah,
right?
and that gets even worse when you put in the heroes that had shield abilities.
Yeah.
So like Orisa's shield, Reinhardt's shield. You have matches that would drag even more because this is a resource that they can keep replenishing over and over and over again, and it's such a pain in the ass to punch through. And if you get a team that really knows what they're doing, like I forget what the exact composition was, but it was, I'm pretty sure, Reinhardt, Orisa, I forget the healers, and I think the DPS are almost irrelevant. But it was called like the GOATS strategy. And like this is all anyone did in the competitive scene for quite a while because it was just the most effective way to play.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Winston has a shield too, and Brigitte, who's one of the healers, although her, it's really small and weak, but
yeah, she's kind of a weird support.
Yeah. So that's okay. So the main change, or at least one of them, is that they have changed the team sort of format, so it's smaller, and the purpose is to put less of a focus on the tanks and sort of force everyone to like actually engage each other, right? And
yeah, they want to make it a more dynamic experience.
Yeah. The other thing is it's free to play. So that was something that you were mentioning. They're going to make it free to play. And how is that supposed to work?
So they're switching to a free to play live service. So if you want it, you can get it, you can download it, you can play the free version of it. And how they're going to be supplementing their income is they're going to do a seasonal model of updates, and each season is going to have a battle pass. So they're gonna be switching to one of those types of games.
Okay.
And they've set hard deadlines for themselves, which was something they really lacked in Overwatch 1. Updates kind of came out
whenever
when they came out.
Yeah.
and they like said like, hey, we're aiming for like a new hero this year. We really want to, and you know the year would come and go, and it's like, okay, well, we introduced a new map. There was that was cool.
Mm-hmm.
So now they're going to be allegedly holding themselves to a much stricter timeline going forward. Like I'll throw this.
At least that's
I'll throw
what
this in the chat here.
That's what they're saying, right?
Yeah, that's what they're saying, but like they've actually got dates and shit. So I would be really surprised if all three of these updates aren't basically already in the can.
Yeah.
And just being tweaked, but if they had to release them, they probably could.
Yeah.
So the battle pass, the way I've seen it work is it's going to be based on experience gained. And there's going to be two versions. There's going to be like a free version, and then there's going to be a premium version. And the free version allows you to unlock all the basic stuff, which is namely the new heroes. Yeah. And the premium one is going to add like a bunch of emotes and skins and cosmetics and, you know, junk like that.
So stuff that you would normally have to like get out of a loot box in the original.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And I'm not even sure if there's going to be loot boxes in this one.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was just thinking about. So like the original model for the game.
Yeah, they say it right here. Loot boxes, with the new seasonal models, loot boxes are going away. So loot boxes are done. They're over.
There are no loot boxes. So in case you guys are wondering what I mean by that, in the original game, as you played, so Overwatch was basically like everything in the game was in the game, like whatever was available, right, at the time. And whenever Blizzard updated it with a new hero or new maps or whatever, or you know, like seasonal events, because they would do seasonal events like, oh, you know, Christmas is coming and here's a bunch of winter themed, you know, extras that you could earn. All of that, it was essentially just built into it. And then when your characters would get experience points and they would level up, but the level, well, not you would get experience points and level up, and whenever you leveled up you got a loot box. And
they also had the thing where it's like every week you got 9 games, and every 3 games you win, you get a box.
Yeah, you get, there was like a number of ways to earn boxes.
Yeah,
and
it was actually a pretty generous system. It was aside from the first purchase of buying the game, I've never sunk another penny into this.
Yeah,
and I think I've gotten the majority of the content just because it's
basically
been my like go-to. I want to just shut my brain off and do some fragging type of game.
Yeah, same here. I never bought. You could buy loot boxes, but I never did it. And if you just, I mean, you don't even have to play like a whole lot. You just needed to like, if you're casual and it's like, you know, you just had dinner, you want to unwind, you play Overwatch for, I don't know, a couple hours, you'll probably get like a good number of loot boxes just from doing that. And you'll probably like you'll probably unlock things like right away. Even though after a while you start getting like, what do you call it?
Repeats.
You get repeats or copies of things you already have. But
that was the cool thing. Like they give you like their little currency. Overwatch dollars.
Yeah, and then
for the repeats, and those bank up quite a bit after a while.
They do, and then you can go and buy the skin you really want. But yeah, I mean, I basically unlocked everything except for like there was like special skins that you could only get if you like watched online matches or something.
Yeah, I never cared for them.
I never cared for them either.
Yeah, the other thing too is you had to participate in comp to get another currency to buy golden weapons, which I always thought looked really cheesy.
Yeah, I think I do have one though. I do for McCree. I have a golden weapon, but it's too much work and not really all that rewarding.
The comps. Oh god, the comp scene in Overwatch is terrible.
Yeah, you just do that to flex on people. So anyway, that was the original model, and I actually really like that model because there's a lot of like debate about like what is the best model for essentially maintaining a video game's life cycle especially if it has a large or even exclusive online component. Because like if I go buy the Resident Evil 2 remake, I can only play it like a certain number of ways, and it's all fun. Like, it's a great game and everything. But after you've done everything, then you've basically gotten your money's worth, and it sits on the side until like maybe you feel like playing it again. And most single player games are like that, whether they're action adventure or like Devil May Cry 5, or if it's something more like a big fat like JRPG that takes like hundreds of hours. But Overwatch and games like that, they're essentially the first one could only be played competitively, could only be played online. So,
well, I mean, that's not entirely. Well, I'll push back on one tiny thing.
Okay.
They did experiment with that PvE system, and it was mostly chained to a few events. Like Halloween, they had it.
Oh yeah, all right. I know.
And then they had the spring event. I forget what it was called.
Who's
but yeah, you had these. Yeah, you had the ones you could fight bots, and they kind of like, well, this is interesting. This is quirky. We'll keep workshopping this, and that's, I guess, one of the other things in 2 that they're going to be really pushing for.
Yeah, no, I know they've done it, and then there was like the archives where you can, and those were PVE. But even then, what I'm getting at is that you needed other people to play with. So yeah. So either you were playing against other humans, with other humans, or you were just playing with other humans against the AI. So that means the game needed to be online, and if you weren't online for whatever reason, there was almost nothing to do except go into like the targeting practice area. But I think that the challenge is, and this is what I was getting at, is that when you are, if that is your model and it works well, like I thought like Overwatch was a blast. I couldn't praise it enough, considering all of the elements, right, from the art style to the voice acting and all of the personality put into the gameplay and the abilities and everything, and how it's like you can keep playing it because there's always some, I want to learn this character, I want to learn that character. So there was a lot of good to say about it. But and the way that they did the money system or the model, because essentially every release that came after the game was essentially just free, right? Like you just updated, and now you got, I think it started off with something like 20 something characters, and I think now it's close to 40, or definitely in the 30s somewhere, and you didn't have to pay for it. You didn't have to buy the DLCs or anything. They just gave it to you. And the reason obviously makes sense, because like if no one buys it, then the community will shrink, because then people will start feeling as though they're being like taken advantage of, and they might say, well, I'm not going to buy that character or whatever. But where they did make money was in the loot boxes. I think that's really the only way, to be honest. And I guess people were buying them. I mean, I could only assume. So, and I know they were, because there's like videos of people buying like a shit ton and then opening them all, because maybe it's the gambling aspect that they like. But then I thought, well, what if that's not really all that profitable for Blizzard? And that's why I thought maybe if they're changing it to a season pass model, maybe there's a good reason for that. Like, how do you feel about the way that they're doing things now in terms of like, how they're gonna, I guess, monetize the game?
Well, I like that. It's always been a situation of you never actually have to buy anything.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to play the game, if you just want to get the heroes, they're there. They're accessible. You get them right when the update happens.
Yeah.
The only thing you can ever get out of a loot box is purely cosmetic.
Yeah, it's cosmetics.
Yeah. I'm not super keen on the fact that they're putting the heroes going forward behind the battle passes.
Yeah.
but I can at least respect that, hey, all you have to do is play the game to unlock them, and you're going to be doing that anyway, so why
So
not?
you can unlock them by playing the game.
Yeah, they're going to be in the free version of the Battle Pass.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
when they release, okay, well, I mean, that might work because I think that like developers are still trying to figure out, I believe, because if they're business people, right? They need
Mm-hmm.
to have a model that will bring them profits so that they can continue to develop and expand on the game because that costs money. But I think that they're trying to figure out how to do that without pissing off the customers by making it like, overly exploitative. And this is, I think that's a challenge. And I think that like a lot of people, they just hate DLC, like flat out, they just hate it, right? In every context. And I don't think that is a fair way to look at it. I think that the way that DLC or expansions or battle passes or whatever it is, how those things work can be looked at on an individual basis to see, well, okay, wait, is this worth the money? And if I don't buy this, what am I missing out on, right? Because I think they are trying to figure that out. Like my wife and I were talking about old video games, and I joked with her about how so I'm a big Street Fighter fanatic. I love the Street Fighter franchise. And I know that there's a new Street Fighter coming out, Street Fighter 6, and they said it's going to be free to play. And I was immediately repulsed because I had this bad feeling that they're going to try and get more money than the game is worth from people. I don't know what the model's going to be yet, but free to play always makes me nervous when I hear that.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want anything to do with it, but I was talking to Lindsay the other night, and I said, when I was a teenager, I had a Super Nintendo Entertainment System, and I bought Street Fighter 2 when they finally put it on the Super. It was the first time Street Fighter had been on a home console. Well, Street Fighter 2, and like I was like the guy, like all my friends wanted to come over and play, right? Because like this had been never done before. And then, like, in the arcades, the Street Fighter franchise was so popular that they were essentially doing patches on Street Fighter and then releasing the cabinets with, like, a slightly modified title, right? So they would change things in the game and add features and add new moves, and then they would release the cabinet with a new title, and that was the new version of the game. So you first got Street Fighter 2, and then you'll see Street Fighter 2 Champion Edition. And in the Champion Edition, like some of the special moves work differently, and you can also play mirror matches because they didn't have mirror matches before. And then they made another one. It was called Turbo, right? It was called Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and so on. And they all use the same. They use the same graphics. They use the same, like sometimes they'd refine the pixel art a little bit, to make it look nicer. And when you, and the reason why I think it's really interesting was if you had it at home, I had Street Fighter 2. There was no such thing as DLC. There was no such thing as expansions, at least not on home consoles. There was no such thing as like, patches or any of that. You just had to buy the game again. So like I had Street Fighter 2, and then I said, okay, I'm going to go buy Street Fighter 2. I think it was just Turbo. They skipped Champion Edition. And I bought Street Fighter 2 Turbo. And then later I bought Super Street Fighter 2. And each iteration of the game was the same price. It was like $70 because I had to buy a new game because the DLC model didn't even exist. And it's funny because I was telling my wife about this. At the time, we didn't really think about it. We just really wanted the game. And I was like, it's funny because people get really upset when like a company says, oh, here's like 4 more characters and it's going to cost you $20. And they feel like they're being really cheated. But I used to have to buy the entire game again for just like little tweaks. And I was happy to do it because I was a huge fan. So, I just think that that's, it's funny because that's just the reality, right, at the time.
Yeah.
I try to remember what I was getting at though. But I guess what I'm saying is that like the I don't know how this model is going to work out with the battle pass stuff, because I haven't really, I don't really know what that means. I guess they're seasonal.
Well, I put a screenshot of what it's going to look like.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. It's you're talking about,
and basically like it's the second one.
Is it this character, this new character?
Yeah.
All right, let me put that on the screen.
Yeah, and it's going to basically just have certain ranks, and you're probably going to have, I think, judging by the trend, something like 90 days, so around 3 months to get everything.
And then if you don't, do you like miss out on that stuff?
They did say that, like, just like the other games, they will be bringing stuff back if you didn't catch it the first time. So it will recycle around. But if you miss it, then you might miss it for a few months.
Yeah.
I don't know how the heroes are going to work. So far, they've said that, like, on launch, the 3 new heroes that they're debuting, 2 of them are going to be available outright. And if you, I think, even just played the first game or just simply own the first game, they're going to give you the 3rd hero too. So upon launch, you're going to have everything.
Mm-hmm.
At least as far as the new heroes go.
Ah, okay. So are you thinking about getting it? Well, it's free, I guess. So what's
I mean, I'll give it a shot. I got some friends who've already been asking, like, hey, you gonna get it? You gonna get it? Because one of the big things too is they're gonna give you more experience for grouping up together. So you're going to have like a reason to want to pull your friends in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't think I'm gonna be getting, like, I think there's like a deluxe version for like $30-$40 or something like that. I'm probably gonna skip out on that. I don't need 2 more skins or whatever it is.
Yeah. And what if you own, so that was another thing, like if you own the original, is it possible to just upgrade that to the sequel, or is that just like, no, these are 2 separate things?
Yes and no. So everything that you have in the first game, all your cosmetics and stuff, they're going to transfer over.
Oh, okay. So it's
all of the currency that you have in the first game, it's also going to transfer over.
Okay. That's
and
cool.
You can use that to buy certain things. But I think the battle pass is like the only thing you can't buy with that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, that doesn't sound too bad. I'm gonna look into it. I'm gonna ask Lindsay about it because, that was like what we did, and it was so much fun for us.
Mm-hmm.
And but yeah, that sounds pretty cool. Did you? I don't have an image of this up, but did you ever hear of Multiverses? Have you ever heard of that?
I've heard of that. I've seen it. I've heard of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little rough around the edges at the moment, I believe.
Well, I downloaded it because it's free, so it's another free to play, and that's why I bring it up. Because like, I think so. Okay, guys, I'm sorry. In case you don't know, Multiverses is a sort of like, it's a Warner Brothers owned Smash Brothers clone, I guess, right? So it's basically Smash Bros, but instead of like various Nintendo and video game characters, it's a bunch of properties owned by Warner Brothers, which is a lot. And but it's like a Smash Brothers clone, right? So you can play as Shaggy or Velma from Scooby-Doo because Warner Brothers owns them. You can play as like Bugs Bunny, the Tasmanian Devil, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but also like Arya Stark is in it, and from
they're really bringing out all the properties.
Yeah, like all the properties.
And it has LeBron James.
Yeah, LeBron James from Space Jam is in it. I'm like, does Warner Brothers own LeBron James?
I guess so.
I don't know. I don't know. Um, but it has like, yeah, Tom and Jerry, which is they're my favorite. Um, but it has all these characters that are either, you know, have always belonged to or are now owned by Warner Brothers, and they're constantly adding new characters. And I think that like on the on that basis, that's kind of cool, right? Like I think it is. Um, but the problem is that the free to play model makes it like it's kind of impossible. Like, right, what they do is they show you all the characters, but if you want to play online, you're limited to with unless you buy a pass or something, right? You're limited to like 5 characters that they swap out every like I don't know, couple weeks. So, you know, one you might be like playing Iron Giant, who's another character you can play as. You're, you know, playing a ton of Iron Giant matches, and then you go back one day and Iron Giant's no longer available, and now you have to play as, you know, like Rick from Rick and Morty, who's also in there, and the what is it, the show Adventure Time? You know, they have Finn.
Yeah.
They got the Steven Universe. Like it's just they're all over the place, and I think that like I said, it looks great. It's actually like, you know, pretty fun to play, but because they're using a kind of like battle pass model where you're either going to pay to like get access to the characters because that's what you want to play it for, or you're basically gonna have to put in a whole bunch of hours, right? Play tons and tons of matches so that you might be able to earn enough of the in-game currency to buy like one character. And there are people who have done that, but I'm like, you know, I like I said, I like the idea. The game is fun, but I don't like the way that they're executing the model, and that's my concern more broadly with these kind of like battle pass models. So I'm that's why I brought it up. I hope that that's not really a major issue with Overwatch, but we'll see. So I'll keep my eye on it. All right, I got another story. I thought this was really interesting because I kind of saw this happening, this trend. So, Twitter users report HBO Max removed Warren Beatty's and Paul Newman's cigars from movie poster art used on its homepage. McCabe and Miss Miller, those are the movies, and the life and times of Roy Bean. And I wanted, I don't know if you guys can see this very well, but I think this is really interesting because I've been seeing this. So what I have noticed, and I don't know if you guys have noticed, but have you noticed that in most movies nobody smokes anymore? Like you don't see cigarettes. You might see a bong, you might see, you know, drugs, you might see weed, but you won't see cigarettes or cigars, really. And I think that like it's not, you know, like they used to do this with the, I think it was the X-Men cartoon. So like there was a old X-Men cartoon and Wolverine smoked cigars and they removed the cigars from the cartoon because I guess, well, I mean, I can only assume it was because they didn't want kids to think it was okay to smoke. And the reason why I find this interesting is that they're only doing this to the men. So like, so here's here's this, you know, Warren Beatty, and he
looks so goofy.
It does look goofy.
You can tell what's going on, okay?
Yeah, like they just digitally removed the cigar from his mouth. And again, like, well, is there a cigar in the movie? Because like, what have you actually done if this is what you're doing? You know? And here's Paul Newman, and you can see that he has like a cigar there. And it's the, you know, these are like westerns, right? They're kind of, you know, like guys smoking cigarettes in westerns. That's like comes with the territory. Like, why are you watching a Western if you're not comfortable with the men smoking in them? And they removed it. Well, it looks like he's just kind of picking at his beard now. And I just think it's really funny because I believe that this is a product of a kind of, obviously it's kind of censorship, but it's like, but why? You know, like why are they doing this specifically with guys like Paul Newman and Steve McQueen? And I think it's because they're, you know, they always play these kind of like manly, you know, tough guy characters. That was like what they, and we're looking at movies from like the 70s and the 60s, right? So these aren't even new. So anyone who wanted to watch the life and times of Judge Roy Bean, they're not like, it's not like Amazon. I think that's where this is. This might not be Amazon though. Might be wrong. This HBO Max. So it's not like HBO Max is like promoting this film. Like, you'd have to look it up. You'd have to be like someone who's like, I want to watch this movie.
Brian, quick aside.
All right,
on the life and times of Judge Roy Bean. Someone pointed out that when they removed the cigar, he's doing it. He's doing the fucking Boromir pose.
Yeah.
See it?
Yeah.
I can't unsee it now.
I see it. It's true. It's true. One does not simply digitally remove a cigar. So what's this? So yeah, okay. So I think that this kind of has something to do with like the kind of masculine image of older films, because in older movies, you know, we had a number of leading men that I mean, they would basically play like these kind of like you know, gritty heroic characters, but also the women loved them. So like, imagine this, like there's another thing. Like, do you guys remember if Daniel Craig smoked cigarettes when he played James Bond? But everyone remembers like the, you know, the famous scene where Sean Connery's Bond smokes a cigarette. It's like hanging out of his mouth, you know, and that's where he like, sort of delivers.
Back then, everybody smoked.
Yeah, but it was part of the. It's true. More people did smoke, but I think it was also just kind of part of the. I don't know. There was something about the masculine image that it put forward, and I thought it's interesting that they're essentially doing what they can to get rid of that, because it's, again, like, I don't think this has a tremendous amount of influence over, say, children. I don't think they could make the argument, you know, that it's to protect the children. But I do think that there's got to be another reason, and maybe they just don't like cigarettes. I don't know, but it seems weird.
I think it's just they're trying to just sanitize everything.
Yeah.
They're trying to make everything squeaky clean and child friendly. Like, remember that was YouTube's huge push. What was it, like 2.5, 3 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Or like we got to make sure everything. We got to make sure the platform is as child friendly as humanly possible. Even though there are just some YouTube channels, some YouTube accounts, some YouTubers who just don't give a shit at all about the child audience. But we've got to make sure everything is child friendly. Least we lose more sponsors.
Right. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's a great argument, but I do think it is one that they would probably make. And that brings me to something else. So I have noticed that the streaming services have been editing a lot of the imagery that they use on their websites, like the cigarettes, right? But also, I've heard that they have been editing the films themselves. So they've been like taking things out that they think are problematic. They've been, you know, sort of re-editing films. And I mean, there are not like a ton of instances of this, but I think there was something from like a John Hughes movie where they took something out. It might have been like The Breakfast Club. And there have been other examples. And I think that they did something to one of the Back to the Future movies. And so I bring this up because if
Well,
you're
they've already did completely digitally edited Trump out of Home Alone 2.
yeah, exactly, yes. And they've cut things exactly. They cut Trump out of Home Alone. Home Alone 2. Exactly my point. So like what I'm getting at is that I'm not on any streaming services. The only one I got on was Netflix for like a week because I really wanted to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stone Ocean, and that was the only way I could watch it. But then I canceled my subscription right after that. And but like I would say that if you are a huge fan of movies, get the physical copies. Get a DVD, get a Blu-ray, because they are editing those films. They're trying to essentially rewrite history by altering them to make them more, I guess, in line with their own sensibilities. So I would say if you're a big fan, especially of some of these classics, because the classics are still, in my opinion, very much in line with like our kind of like Western cultural, view on these kind of values, because all stories are moral arguments, and even in the 70s and 80s, there were a number of people who would have described themselves as liberal that would tell very good stories. So this isn't even meant to be a political thing. Like John Carpenter, for example. So I would suggest that you guys consider, if you're gonna like continue to support good film, maybe go and find physical copies of these older movies. So, all right, let us know what you guys think about this one in the comments. I just wanted to mention it really quick. All right, so let's move on to the next one. So, Dave, have you ever seen, or not Dave, I'm sorry, Mike, have you ever seen Cobra Kai?
It's one of those things that's been on my list for far too long. I always keep saying I'm going to try and watch that, but I never do.
Yeah,
I've heard good things.
I have too. I've heard. I mean, I haven't seen it, but I've heard a lot of good things. I actually want to watch it, but my wife has never seen Karate Kid, so I said, "Well, we got to watch Karate Kid." And then once we've watched, I guess even the third one, which I don't think I want to watch. That's the one with the girl, right? But like, I guess that they've been like using all available canon to essentially make Cobra Kai as interesting as they can. And I had never seen it, but I want to watch it. But I think I want to watch the old Karate Kid movies first. And I hadn't seen the original Karate Kid since the 80s, so I don't remember much. But there. So I brought that up because I know Cobra Kai is a big hit. People really like it, and I guess this is why I want to watch the original films first, because I guess the more of the original films you remember, the more you can appreciate from Cobra Kai. Although you might not have to watch it. So I brought that up because Sony is announcing a new Karate Kid film that has no involvement from anyone involved with the Cobra Kai cast and crew. So they're doing something completely without that. Over the last few years, Cobra Kai has become one of the most popular and successful TV shows in recent memory. So when Sony announced a new Karate Kid film, fans rejoiced at the idea of Daniel returning to the silver screen. Well, not so fast, my friend, because that plan is not in Sony's cards. On Friday afternoon, Sony Pictures announced that the return of the original Karate Kid franchise, revealing that a new movie in the classic series was slated for June 7th, 2024. As of writing, outside of this release date, no other details are known about the film. So, it sounds like...
Just please tell me Jaden Smith is going to be kept far away from it.
Yeah, right. I was thinking.
Jackie Chan can come back. He's cool. I like him. No Jaden Smith, please.
Yeah. Yeah, no Jaden Smith. Well, that's the thing I was thinking about. Like, are they doing a sequel to the remake that nobody watched? Or are they going to try and reboot it again? because if you're not involving anyone that is involved with the Cobra Kai thing, which from what I understand, they worked pretty hard to make Cobra Kai feel as though it's right in line with the original film timeline. So I just wonder, like, if this is like some kind of, what would you call it? Like there's some bitterness here. There's some like tension or hostility.
Possibly.
Yeah, it's just something I'm thinking about. Like, all right, so I got a super chat from Zarangs. He gives us $2 and says 3 Karate Kid films. Hilary Swank did the 4th. Okay. I knew there was a girl in one of them. That's all. How old is Jackie Chan now? Oh, he's got to be like in his 60s.
60? Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, he's like in his late 60s. I'm fairly certain.
Jackie Chan. Yeah, bang on, 68.
Yeah, and he's still working as far as I know. I think Jackie Chan will work till he's dead.
Film career 2008 until present.
Is that his most recent movie?
Let's check. In 2022, he is going to be in something called Project Extraction.
Okay. All right. That doesn't sound like it's going to be in like Hollywood theaters. So I hope
might just be a code name. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. It might be a working title or something.
Oh, and he's coming back. He's coming back as Master Monkey in Kung Fu Panda 4.
Oh, well, that just requires him to do voice work.
That's gonna go. Wow, that's gonna be 2024.
Yeah. I'm a huge Jackie Chan fan. Always was. I was actually one of those weird kids that liked him more than Bruce Lee when Bruce Lee was very popular. Not that I didn't like Bruce Lee. I have a Bruce Lee poster in my room. But I think Jackie Chan was I don't know. Like, we knew they were all just doing choreography, and I think Jackie Chan worked a lot harder on it.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, he fucking destroyed his body so many times.
Yeah.
And he keeps coming back.
I know, and that's the thing, like, that makes him so appealing. And, and he does it, like, in a masterful way where he sort of combines, like, really cool-looking martial arts action with the sort of comedy of, like, Buster Keaton and kind of, even, like, Charlie Chaplin, type stuff. And he was a big fan of that, so... and again, no disrespect to Bruce Lee, but his thing was just, like, knocking out bad guys. And that was basically it, right? But Chan, he made it into like an art, and he could.
I want to see him lean into the one meme, because we have not seen this happen to my knowledge. I could be wrong. Haven't watched a lot of Jackie Chan, content in quite a while. But the idea of Jackie Chan is impossible to beat if in a Home Depot.
Yes.
I want to see this happen. I need to see this happen.
I hope that, honestly, and I know this is kind of off to the side, but I hope that he has a really great protege, because, like, if there's someone to carry on the same kind of, like, approach to entertainment, I think that we'd all be a lot richer for it. But that being said, I don't like, one of the problems, like, that I believe is a big issue when it comes to Chinese cinema, or cinema from the, I guess you could say, like, the area that China occupies, is that it's not as good as it used to be. And I think one of the reasons for this has a lot to do with the government.
And he is very, very unfortunately a very large supporter of the CCP.
Yeah, exactly. But also, like, well, I would probably presume that he has no choice anyway. But yeah, I mean, like, because most of so if there's any people here that are big kung fu movie fans, especially kung fu movies from the 80s, most of those came out of Hong Kong. when Hong Kong was a part of the British Empire, or but before it was basically a part of China. And I think that the reason why so much of that Hong Kong cinema was so great was because they had the freedom to make that and just tell whatever stories they wanted. And then if you notice that, like, as China was sort of creeping in, more and more movies coming out of that part of the world were more and more pro Chinese government, they were kind of nationalist in a way, but not in like the general like China good way, but more like Chinese government good kind of way. And I think it stifled creativity, and I think that's why we don't really see it anymore. And even like the kung fu movies, or when they would like make films, and China would always say, this is the biggest budget movie that we've ever made, right? And they'll always talk about that, and then you'll watch it and you'll be like, it's garbage. Like, what, like, it's just not a good movie. It's boring. Maybe there's tons of special effects, but they look ugly. There was that one movie with Matt Damon. I think it was just called The Great Wall. It was awful. Like, they just produced crap, but they would spend a lot of money on it. And they would put this, like, kind of, pro-China message as the central thing.
It's a weird thing. It's very strange how, like, to be a hit in China, you really only need, like, 3 things.
Yeah.
The movie doesn't have to have a good plot, doesn't have to have good acting. Just, it needs to be China, fuck yeah. Over the top CGI, even if it looks like absolute ass.
Mm-hmm.
And no blacks or gays.
Yeah, no blacks, no gays. Exactly. And so I don't know, like, it's a shame because I loved Hong Kong cinema. And I would love to see that come back. I think Hong Kong was probably the best thing that that came out of that whole region. But it's not Hong Kong anymore, so I probably shouldn't say that. Anyway, I got way off track. We're talking about Cobra Kai. So Sony's got a new Karate Kid film. Just so you know, has nothing to do with the original films or the Cobra Kai show that those movies inspired. So, all right, here's another one. So, new report claims. So, Amazon Prime Video. I remember when they announced this too. They said they were going to do a Conan the Barbarian series, and when I heard that, I was like, please, God, don't. Like, I was certain that they were not going to be able to do Conan the Barbarian like well, because the problem is that all television these days, it all like really feels the same. Like, it's all like a soap opera, and there's like it's trying to appeal to everyone, but it really just ends up appealing to women.
The female audience?
Yeah, the female audience, exactly. So it basically, that's like how almost everything is. Like, if you
yes.
Yeah, it's like
I've got a miniature rant here.
Okay.
Dude, you can always tell when this is happening, and it's usually because a woman has taken over as writing staff.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens on a few of my favorite shows. One of them being Adventure Time. I fucking loved Adventure Time back in the day. Adventure Time was great when it was just,
Lindsay
a boy
has like
and
Lindsay has the first few DVDs.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's still going. Is it
great.
Still going right now? Is that?
No. I'm pretty sure it's over at this point. But like, it went from this fun, quirky little show about just a boy and his talking dog going on crazy ass adventures, and then suddenly, not even slowly, it just became about relationship drama. And who's dating who and who isn't dating who and who've split up, and these two characters that have had a very clearly defined friendship for the past several seasons, they're lesbians and you didn't know it because you're a homophobe.
Oh no.
And I looked at that and I'm like, what the fuck happened? And apparently it was because Pendleton Ward was no longer doing the majority of the writing, who was, just kind of the show's creator. And it was Rebecca Sugar and her gang of fetishists now
Really?
sort of taking over a bit of the helm. And that's, again, just when suddenly, crazily, it was all about relationships and no longer about whackers and adventures.
So they literally turned Adventure Time into Steven Universe, even though there was already a Steven Universe. Because like Rebecca Sugar, when they announced the show and I saw her, I was like, uh-oh. Like that was immediately what my brain went, this is gonna be like weird woke, shit about relationships like that, because that's usually how and like you're special because you are kind of self-affirming weird narcissist stuff. And I had no interest in Steven Universe, but I knew that Adventure Time was meant to be like kind of like what a highly imaginative child would want to see, I guess, but like a boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so like Adventure Time was for boys, and Steven Universe was for girls. And it's not like a boy couldn't enjoy Steven Universe or vice versa, but that's how the tone was. So essentially, Adventure Time shifted and became about relationships and basically the kind of girly things that girls like to see. And then they think, and this is the thing that really kind of pisses me off, they think that actually makes it more sophisticated and like better stories because they turn it into a soap opera. This is like the CW, like that's everything they do. That's why I never watch the CW. I don't know why people watch it because it's so bad. But like if people are into it, whatever. But I think that it's just like really not in my interests. And I remember there was a time where you could find shows like that if that's what you wanted, but you could also find shows that men wanted to watch, about like detectives or cowboys or like it was usually detectives and cowboys, but basically like men like doing shit, like I don't know what else to call it. And men could watch that, but like that shit doesn't exist now. Like it I don't know how many times that people have tried to promise something like that, or at least they made you think that's what it was going to be about, and then you go watch it and it turns into a soap opera like within an episode. Maybe they give you like, how some shows they suck you in by giving you like a really high budget badass action packed first act of the first episode, and then everything else just like that's how they suck you in, and then it turns into like boring slog right after. Yeah. And that's
that
like,
was, oh god, that's exactly how I felt about season 1 of The Walking Dead and then season 2.
Yes.
Although that was more or less the fact that they went from having all of the budget to having none of the budget, and also their stellar director Frank Darabont leaving.
Well, exactly.
That's all because they didn't have the numbers of how fucking well season 1 did.
Mm-hmm.
And then they saw that for season 3, like, oh crap, oh people are watching this, damn it, okay, here's money.
Yeah, it's stupid, but yeah, you're right. I mean, the thing is that people watched The Walking Dead because they heard Frank Darabont was attached to the project.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted. And yeah, man, you watch that first episode, it's fucking badass. Like it basically is a movie. The way that they did
I've watched it,
Yeah.
I've watched it with people that like don't even like have any interest in there, and they go, well, I don't know about all that. I'm not a huge fan of Walking Dead, but wow, that first episode was something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I'm sorry, I have just given you a powerful curse.
Yeah. Well, the first episode, and even
it's only got to go downhill, man.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I think the first season is good because I understand that you like. Well, I don't really know why, but I guess it's just a matter of time investment, not just money. because like, you know, you can find like movies about zombies that go way back where there was no budget. Nobody had the money to make like Night of the Living Dead, and yet everyone regards it as a classic. So maybe it's not about how much money you spend, you know, because like but like rather, you know, like how well do you execute the elements that you have access to, which I think, you know, there was a lot more problem solving in film back in the day because they weren't working with the same budgets. They were, you know, they were working with limited resources, and also they didn't have the technology, so they couldn't do just like a bunch of CGI zombies because they didn't have CGI. But I think that it's partly there's like a complacency. Like you become complacent and you think that, well, people have seen, you know, their share of the what's the word I'm looking for, spectacle of the zombies in this particular case, and then they just pull them out, and then you barely get any for the rest of the season. It might be meaningful when they show up, but it's not like that first episode, and I think that's a trap. Like that's the kind of stuff that concerns me. So if I watch a first episode of something and they're claiming it's big budget, like this is what the Rings of Power is supposed to be, right? And maybe in the very first episode of Rings of Power, you get some spectacle. You get to see some CGI, some backdrops, a monster. I think there's like a troll in the first episode, for example, right? And then it looks really good, and then the troll is dead, and you're pretty sure you're never going to see something like that for the rest of the season. But what they're banking on is essentially sucking you in with all of this front-loaded stuff. And so yeah, I think it's basically like something that people should be wary of. They always do this with TV too, always. Didn't Game of Thrones, like the not the original show, but the House of the Dragon? I think if anyone watched it, you let me know because I haven't seen it. But I guess in the first episode, there's dragons because it's the first episode, so we gotta like get you excited and hyped up for the rest of the season. So did they use CGI dragons? Because I remember in the original Game of Thrones, ironically, you don't see any dragons until the very end of the season. It's like the last shot, the first season.
Yeah. So that was their big hype up. That was their big like reveal, you know?
Yeah. That's what we were building towards for like the whole season, right? Yeah. So, all right. But anyway, so let me read through this article a little. New report claims Prime Video abandoned a Conan the Barbarian TV series because of toxic masculinity. A new report claims that Prime Video abandoned Conan. A Conan the Barbarian TV series was announced by Deadline in 2018. In the initial announcement, it was revealed that current House of the Dragon showrunner Ryan Condal was behind the series. He was also joined by House of the Dragon showrunner and Game of Thrones director Miguel Sapochnik. That's a weird name. They detailed the series would retell Conan's origins as he is driven out of his tribal homelands and wanders the mysterious and treacherous world of civilization where he searches for purpose in a place that rejects him as a mindless savage. The report also specifically noted that this Conan the Barbarian series would be part of the Jeff Bezos and Prime Video's answer to Game of Thrones, with Deadline's Nelly Andreeva writing, quote, "The project falls into Amazon's push into big fantasy genre drama series with broad appeal in the mold of Game of Thrones." I just want to say that Conan the Barbarian is not Game of Thrones. They're really not even similar. And like, do you know what I mean?
Conan the Barbarian. No, I get it entirely. Conan the Barbarian. Okay, Game of Thrones works by having a cast of characters all sort of loosely competing for the same thing. Yeah. You only need one thing for Conan the Barbarian. Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to be interacting with other people. Like, that's one of the strengths of Conan, is he makes sense to be thrown into damn near any situation. And that was one of always the coolest things about him, is the character is very dynamic, very very fluid. He does kind of what he needs to when he needs to do it, and he adapts to the situation.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when he's a king, he behaves like a king. When he needs to be a thief, he behaves like a thief. Like, there's an entire novel where he finds this woman or witch or something, and he's just like, I'm gonna have sex with you. And she's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, you're not. And the whole thing is just him trying to chase her and bang her.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
and that's all you need for a story there.
well, yeah. I mean,
You don't
like,
need this complex tale of like intrigue and incest and dragons and zombies, and yeah, that's all nice and stuff, but you don't need that for Conan. You can stay pretty grounded, and it can still be a great time.
yeah. The primary difference, I think, is that Game of Thrones and the House of the Dragon and those kinds of things, they're like, it's about political intrigue. It's like, it's like when they used to do lots of shows like this, like the Borgias, I think, was one. It was based on like a historical,
Yep.
but like but that's what people were drawn to, or Rome, or those kinds of shows, right? So it's like, it's about people in tremendous positions of power moving chess pieces around to fuck over other people in tremendous positions of power. And that has an appeal, and I get it. And that's essentially what Game of Thrones is. It's a bunch of political movers and shakers trying to fuck each other over. And everyone's backstabbing everyone, and everything is morally gray, and that's the story. And people love that, and that's fine. But Conan is not that. It's not political. It's not it's basically like one guy, probably the toughest guy on earth, walking around enjoying his freedom. Because like it's sort of, Razor Fist talked about Conan because he's a big fan of pulps, and he was making comparisons between pulp characters like the Shadow and also Solomon Kane, because Solomon Kane is like a Christian, and he's he hunts evil, so he's got a moral like cause, and that was like the but then he said about Conan the Barbarian is all about absolute freedom. Like, that's it, right? He is like, just don't get in my way, because I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. And of course, he's always running into people who are trying to oppress him, or enslave him, or kill him, or eat him, because he's like fighting monsters all the time. And people enjoy Conan because, especially men, because again, he is like the most, I think, ultimate expression of masculinity, because he doesn't work for anyone, he doesn't take shit from anyone, he lives the life he wants to, the way he wants to, and that includes the women, right? And whenever he takes a woman, they always submit. So it's not rape, it's nothing like that, because they want him because he's fucking Conan. Like, that's the story. Yeah. That's it.
They recognize him as the clear alpha.
Yeah.
And they're like, I gotta give him a place of that.
And the world is savage, so there's no like, there almost isn't any politics in Conan. It's all like conquerors and tyrants, and they're not up for debate. Like, they run shit, and you're either going to avoid them or you're going to have to confront them. So
that's the other thing too. It's always like if you think Conan looks bad,
yeah,
whoever he's going up against with is just like 20 times worse.
Yeah, they're always worse. And again, like, Conan never, like, those books, as far as I know, they were never claiming a moral position, right?
No.
They're basically saying, look, if you lived in a world like this, then you're either going to like do what you have to do to survive, or you're gonna die. And that was basically the story. And men were like drawn to that because that's like beyond the perimeter of the wild, and that's what it is. That's what makes it appealing. So, they said, let's see, why the series was moved from Amazon and Netflix was never fully explained. but a new report from YouTube channel Midnight's Edge claims it was cut from Amazon due to toxic masculinity. First, Midnight's Edge founder Andre Einherjar explains that Amazon didn't just want a Game of Thrones competitor, they wanted to dominate the entire fantasy market. He says, quote, Bezos wanted something which would enable Amazon to dominate the fantasy market in the same way Game of Thrones had done for HBO. To make that dominance complete, though, they weren't looking for just one Game of Thrones, but two. One for the family market and one for the more adult market. One that would quite literally capture the exact same market that were engrossed in Game of Thrones.
Can I just say I hate like everything about that one sentence. We were looking to create just another 2 Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like it's become a commodity now. It's just like, imagine, I know he probably doesn't give a shit because he's rolling in millions now, but if I was George R.R. Martin and I've spent, my entire life essentially jotting out this, super complex sort of series that, I'm still writing to this day, and I'm putting my blood, sweat, and tears into it. Not saying George R.R. Martin is doing this, but to an extent, he definitely did work very hard to release what he has right now. But and just have the company be like, wow, boy, Mike, that's great. I really like what you're coming out with. That's some good stuff. Hey, good luck with that newest book. We're gonna need 2 or 3 more of these, though.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and we need a child-friendly one, so like can you like stop with all the boobs and beheadings, and then we want a really gritty one, so like we need twice the amount of heads being cut off and twice the amount of full frontal nudity scenes. And also, can you work in China somehow?
Yeah, exactly. It's gross. So I guess like what they're saying is they were gonna do Rings of Power. They were already working on it. And they wanted Conan so that they would have like a really mature or warrior story, which means Rings of Power might not like go that far in terms of like that department. I know that there were like intimacy, people were saying that there were like intimacy, what do you call them? Like agents that work with the actors when they're doing sex scenes for the Rings of Power. But maybe it won't be that explicit. But all right, let me just finish this. Amazon wanted Lord of the Rings, right? So to capture the family market, but to be their Game of Thrones, to take over the Game of Thrones market, they had something else in mind, mainly Conan the Barbarian. It was the perfect property to fill the same need as Game of Thrones, but they had the perfect showrunner for it, Ryan Condal, then of Colony fame. I don't know what Colony is. You know what that is? It's a show or something?
I'm gonna guess it's a show. I've never heard of it or watched it.
Einherjar details, quote, and the scripts he had written were extremely true to the original Robert E. Howard stories, and according to everyone who read them, amazingly good, end quote. Well, I hope that's the case, but like, I guess it doesn't matter because I don't think they're. He then explains how it all went wrong, but then the executives who had commissioned Conan in the first place were Me Too'd and replaced with Jennifer Salke.
Lovely.
So, the guys involved got Me Too'd, and a woman took their jobs. She came in to clean up Amazon both in terms of culture and content. He then specifically claimed Salke canned the show due to toxic masculinity and replaced it with the Wheel of Time. Oh, God. Oh, man.
That's a bad trade.
Yeah, that's a bad trade. I heard, okay, so I never read Wheel of Time, but I've heard that this version is awful. This interpretation of Wheel of Time. Where others saw...
I haven't heard good things either.
Yeah, I mean, it's not... Again, you just know that something is not for you. So I saw that, and I was like, that's not for me. Where others saw the next Game of Thrones in Ryan Condal's Conan scripts, Jennifer Salke saw only toxic masculinity. As such, Ryan Condal was fired, Conan was scrapped, and Jennifer Salke picked The Wheel of Time to be Amazon's more adult-oriented Game of Thrones replacement. Although she made sure to make it even more female-centric than it already was, just to be sure there would be absolutely no toxic masculinity. So that's the story of the short-lived Conan show that never happened. But again, I don't think that many people could do this character justice in entertainment today anyway, so it's probably best that they don't. You know who could, though? Just so you guys don't think I'm just like blackpilled on all this. Have you seen... Do you guys know who Gennady Tarkovsky is?
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Gennady Tarkovsky is an animator. He gave us the Clone Wars cartoon, not the 3D one, but like it was like that short little mini series of cartoons. But he also did Powerpuff Girls and what's the other shows?
Samurai Jack.
Yeah,
Dexter's
Samurai Jack.
Lab.
Dexter's Lab. Yes.
This man was responsible for like probably 20% of what I watched in my like preteen years.
Yeah, and I mean, you can tell that he gets it. Like, he knows what makes a show entertaining, and it doesn't even have to have dialogue in it. And that's kind of like, you know, that's why I'm bringing him up, because there's a show that he's been doing, like, most recently called Primal. And I haven't watched the latest season, but I've heard it's fucking awesome. Like, it's just, I've seen like the first, when it first came out, fucking awesome. And again, no dialogue, none is necessary, tells a story through images, and they are very, very Conan-like. So like, I know that this guy works in animation, but if I think that he could work in film if given a budget and the freedom, and then they told him, you're doing Conan. I mean, he's literally doing Conan with Primal. Like, that's what that is right now, right? It just involves a caveman, but it's basically the same thing. I mean, he would fucking nail it. He would nail it. But I don't know if he's going to get that recognition. Those are my thoughts anyway.
I mean, yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah.
Primal's unfortunately one of those things that's been on my like, I should watch this at some point list, and then I forgot about it for the longest time, and then I heard that, oh hey, they just did a new season. Like, I really need to watch this now. But like, from what little I've seen of it, I've enjoyed.
Yeah. So, but you used to watch Samurai Jack, so you got a general
constantly
idea. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I know exactly how he does, and like that was one of the craziest things that I loved about him. Like, I remember at one point, like, my mom walking into the room was like, "What are you watching? Why is there no sound?" I'm like, "Oh, that's just how the show is." And like, that was the craziest thing. You could have so many episodes where there's not a word said for half of the episode. But there's enough going on screen to keep you engaged.
Yep.
And there's enough storytelling, and oh my god, he's so good at that. You know, you don't need anything explained to you. You don't need any context other than what you're seeing. And that is such a powerful thing.
And in terms of his design, he has made like permanent improvements to some, like, so basically he's the guy who created General Grievous. Do you remember when in the Clone Wars animated series of shorts, he did this episode with General Grievous, and that was like one of the most badass characters.
Oh yeah, he turned like General Grievous into the fucking Terminator.
Yeah, but the character did not exist in the movies before. That was his first appearance, right? And I mean, like, literally, when Lucasfilm put General Grievous in the Clone War or the Attack of the Clones, he was significantly nerfed. Because in the what?
I thought the movies came first.
No. So what they did, no, it didn't, because the other thing is that it's Gennady Tarkovsky who put, like, he gave he's the guy who gave Anakin like the scar, because that was the first time you see it, like, is in the Clone Wars. So that came out after Attack of the Clones, when it was released on cable or whatever it was on. What were you gonna say?
I must have got my timelines mixed up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I because the way I remember it is I went and watched, I watched, Phantom Menace, and then like, the Attack of the Clones came out, and then between Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, that's when Gennady released his Clone Wars miniseries, and that's when you see, like, Anakin Scar, General Grievous. There might have even been other things, that he was like user. We're getting a lot of spam for some reason. Anyway, yeah, that guy's great. He's a genius. Give him the rights to Conan and just let him go.
Yeah,
it will be worth it. And then,
and he's proven that, he's one of those guys that can quite simply do anything.
Mm-hmm.
He can write a kid show, Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah.
He can do a more boy-oriented kid show, Dexter's Lab. He can do a much more mature show while still being child-friendly, Samurai Jack. He can put together something very, very, very adult with Primal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's great. He's that damn good at it.
And he knows, like, what people want to see. So, I mean, is Primal popular with women? Probably not, but it's popular, so, must be with men. And that's what I'm saying. Like, not all content is for all people all the time. And whenever we try to make content that does meet that criteria, it almost always turns into a soap opera. So, anyway, that's the story of Conan. I'm glad that they're not actually doing it, but if we were, that would be my suggestion. Let me see, what else do we have? YouTuber, nah, I'm gonna skip that. Let's look at this. Okay, Constantine, because people are talking about remakes and sequels a lot, and I thought this was kind of interesting. So there is a sequel being made of the 1990s Constantine movie with Keanu Reeves and director Francis Lawrence, officially announced by Warner Brothers. So making a sequel to Constantine. Now, I just want to say that I never read the comics, and when Constantine was announced back in the 90s, I had no idea that it was based on the comics, or that even if it was really, really loosely based on the comics. And so I went to see the movie without knowing any of the other like backstory around it, like where it was coming from or whatever. So I liked Constantine. Like, I liked the movie, but that's mainly because I don't know anything about, like, the source material. I didn't even know that there was source material. And I think most people felt that way. Although Constantine did not do well in theaters, if I remember correctly. So I'm just putting that out there now for people who are fans of Constantine, of the comics, and they hated this movie. Because anyone who knew the comics hated this movie. They didn't like that Keanu Reeves was cast to play the role. They didn't like that he didn't look like the character, because the original character is English and he has blonde hair.
English, yeah, blonde, yeah.
Yeah, so, and that, I guess, like, the reason why I thought this was kind of an interesting story is because, like, there's been all these complaints about, there have been some complaints about canon, like the maintenance of canon, okay? And I believe that canon is important. Like, I think that it's like a shared, like, cultural visual language that we all have. So, like, if you watch Beauty and the Beast, for example, the remake that Disney made, you're going to understand like why Belle looks the way she does, because they're trying to get her as close as possible to the original animated version. And even the Beast, they were trying to figure out how to make him kind of like savage or inhuman, but also like, you know, potentially having a human like side. It doesn't work as well because it's live action, whereas the original, because it was animated, there was more like tricks you could use to make the Beast look, you know, at least like sympathetic when you needed him to be. But when they changed other things, like I guess there was like these like aristocrats that were like black people, and it was just really weird, and everyone knew it. Like everybody looked at it and they said that doesn't look right to me. Like I don't think this was going down in, you know, France around this in the 1700s. But we were all expected to just play along, and I think it speaks to what's been going on with Little Mermaid, where there you got like a number of people that, well, first of all, you have the overwhelming majority of people who know that that's not right, but most of them won't say anything. And the reason is because they're afraid of being called racist. So most people don't say anything, and they just pretend like they didn't see that. They're probably not going to watch the movie anyway, because these remakes never like make tons of money. I think that Beauty and the Beast probably made the most, and even then, you know, I don't even know what that had to do with, right? Like maybe because it was sort of starting out. But we're all asked to essentially like not say anything, and anyone who does essentially takes the bait. And that's why there have only been a few people who have spoken out and said this isn't right. But the truth is that because we do share in this visual canon language, if I say Ariel, everyone thinks of the white animated mermaid. Nobody thinks of anything else. If I say Pinocchio, everyone thinks of the animated Pinocchio from Disney, not the one from Shrek, not the one from Guillermo del Toro's, you know, version of Pinocchio. It might be a good movie, but the point is, it's not in our collective consciousness the same way. And so when I saw that they were doing this Constantine thing, I thought it was kind of interesting, because this kind of like, it kind of bucks the trend, because on the one hand, you have people like me who had no idea there was source material that the movie was based on, and that like Constantine is not in the movie. He's basically just dealing with like the forces of heaven and hell. But in the comics, he was dealing with all kinds of magical things, right? It wasn't just like you know, Catholicism or whatever, like the movie did. And so it's almost like it's a different character. And so to me, that's kind of how I treat it. I don't know if this is going to be any good. I like the first movie, but I don't know if it's going to work. So then, you know, I'm like on the, I'm going to wait and see, you know? So I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
I same thing. Like I remember, man, really did come out a while ago, 2005. That just
really, I
that
thought it
seems
was
like
even
a lifetime ago.
I thought it came out even before that, but 2005. Okay, yeah, after the Matrix. Yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Reeves was flying pretty high back then.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching it. I didn't know jack and or shit about the source material. I thought it was a fun time.
Yeah.
I actually liked it a little bit more than Hellboy.
Yeah. Oh, you mean the first Hellboy?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the first Hellboy was. I always thought it was a little overrated. You know, but the second one, that one was.
Well, I liked Constantine because it was a little darker, it was a little more grounded. Whereas the first Hellboy was very, even though it was a live action, still cartoony. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. It was, yeah.
Not that it's bad or anything, but you know, they just I liked the more grounded edginess of Constantine, or at least, you know, like teenager me did.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, sure. I mean, the thing I'm most excited about is that Keanu Reeves is excited about it. Because he always seems to really, 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 really get into a movie if he personally enjoys it. That's why, say, the John Wick movies, he's always giving 110% because he's having fun with what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Then go look at his performance in the latest Matrix movie.
Yeah, I mean, like,
where he's
did
just
he even
like,
want to be there?
It's so funny, like, watching everyone do all this, like, you know, crazy, complex martial arts stuff. And, like, Keanu Reeves, what are you going to do? You know, you practiced, like, how many hours doing 3-gun competitions to get everything looking right for John Wick? Oh, boy, I'm sure you're going to bring a lot to... Now I'm just going to force push everyone by just, like, holding out my hands.
Yeah.
He clearly did not give a shit about that movie.
Yeah, I don't know if anyone did. Like, it was like the Matrix. Is it called Resurrections or Revolution?
No, it's just Matrix 4, I think.
Well,
hold on, is there any byline? Matrix 4.
I think it was called. I think it might be Resurrections. I didn't even finish the movie, and I mean, if you just
yeah, it is. Yeah, here you're right. Resurrections.
Okay. Like, I didn't even finish the movie. I mean, I didn't like Matrix 3. I hated that movie. I was so angry. Like, actually, Reloaded, Reloaded is kind of fun. Like, I could watch it if I'm not thinking too much, because, you know, the chase scene on the freeway is pretty fucking badass. But
the many Smiths fights.
Yeah, but, like, none of it's necessary. Like, the only one in the entire in the whole franchise that, you know, I would say is probably, like, I don't know, I wouldn't say required, but, like, the best one is clearly the first one. And the first one makes all the points that the other ones don't, you know, are trying to also make, which is not necessary because everything is in the first one. It's a complete circle. It's done. Like, you don't need any more. And I get, like, they were like, well, let's make another one because we can, like, make everything bigger. You know, that's kind of what the Matrix 2 was.
Do you want to know why the second 2 movies kind of sucked ass?
Why?
This is going to be a rabbit hole, Brian. Are you sure you want to do this?
Yeah, I can do this.
Brian, in my left hand rests the red pill. You can take it now and understand why the Matrix sucked ass. Or you can take the blue pill and the show continues. As if I had never brought it up. Okay, this is gonna get fucking weird, let me warn you. So, you know the Wachowski brothers are no longer the Wachowski brothers, the Wachowski sisters.
Or the siblings, I think is what
that is...
Or that, was that another pill?
One or the other.
Is that the next level? I guess I jumped ahead.
Well, they both went transgender.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't both of them at first, it was one of them.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I shit you not, they made the first movie. They had quite a bit of success. They were immediately, you know, sort of jumped into the cult that is Hollywood. And I always forget what the guy's name was. He's the one that goes by Lana now, I do believe.
Mm-hmm.
Formerly Larry Wachowski.
Mm-hmm.
He got into some really, really crazy shit.
Oh?
He started getting into the sort of Hollywood LA fetish scene, like BDSM stuff.
Sure. That was all over those movies.
Yeah. Well, mainly the second and the third one.
Yeah, but also the first one to a degree. But yes.
Yeah, nowhere near as much as the second ones.
No.
But yeah. So he got hooked on seeing a professional dominatrix.
Hmm?
And her biggest thing was, again, I'm not joking here, sissy hypno fetish.
Sissy hypno fetish.
Yes, like, I'm gonna brainwash you and convince that you're a girl.
Oh, okay.
And he apparently spent millions on this woman. And so much so that it caused the breakup of his marriage it caused the breakup of her marriage, and basically she turned him into her pay pig.
Mm.
And like, none of this is rumor, none of this is speculation. Thea Bloom, who is Wachowski's former wife, spread this all around.
Yeah.
And the dominatrix lady, her partner, spread that all around. And who is her partner? None other than Buck Angel, if you recognize the name.
I do know that name. That
Buck
doesn't.
Angel, the very he's an incredibly famous, like, female to male transsexual porn star.
Ew. Yeah, I know the name. Yeah, Buck Angel. Okay.
Yeah. And oh dude, she fucking ruined his life, man.
Mm-hmm.
And like, she ran off with him, and they like, apparently that like broke down the entire sort of dynamic of their writing of the movies.
Yeah.
Because he was engrossing himself in this lifestyle. He was fully immersing himself into becoming a woman, and it just broke down the cohesiveness of the filming of the second two movies. The second one, not as much, but the third one, definitely as much. He just wasn't on set for scads and scads of time. And like, you can see, like, because he was doing, like a lot of red carpet appearances, the slowly morphing from like, yeah, no, that's clearly still a dude, to, okay, he's looking really androgynous here, to, okay, neon pink wig.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we are now.
Wow. So, well, I mean, yeah, well, a lot of people have said that the Matrix is about transgenderism, and maybe they were already
that's
prone to that. I know that they made that claim when the newest one came out, and a lot of people were like, "No, it's not," because
they were there. That just seems like a walk back to me.
Yeah, it could be that, but there is a relationship between transgenderism and Gnosticism, and I believe that the Matrix is definitely about Gnosticism. This idea that you can, if you get the red pill, you will have exclusive knowledge. You'll have a true understanding of the universe. It's like eating from, the tree of knowledge, right? And I think that as far as that goes, I can see the relationship. And when you are a Gnostic, you could essentially believe that you can define your own reality. And this is another thing that's in the Matrix, where they say, well, Neo can bend the rules and break the rules, or realize there are no rules. He can do whatever he wants. And they're kind of like attempting to make, I think, a claim about themselves and their perception of reality, or what reality is. So there might be something to that, but again, I'm getting off topic here. So, what do you guys think about Constantine? Did you watch the original film? Are you a fan of the books? Do you hate this movie? I could understand if you do. If you're a fan of the books, let us know in the comments. And then I got a super chat from Zaranx. He gives us $5 and says, Midnight's Edge put out a video that the Constantine sequel basically stops J.J. Abrams from creating his own version and creating his own personal market. But they did kind of do that, though, because didn't they make, like, I feel like, now that I'm thinking about it, isn't there like a female Constantine now, like in a show?
Yeah. The Netflix show, they gender bent Constantine.
Oh, in Sandman, it's Sandman. Yeah. So they made a gender bent Constantine. They may have done that because they knew about this version. So, but yeah, that was something I just thought about. All right. So here's something interesting. Scott Adams. You guys might know Scott Adams. He runs, like, I guess I don't know if he has a YouTube channel anymore, but he used
Pretty
to.
sure he does. or at
Yeah, I
least
mean, I don't know if he's been banned.
Rumble or something.
Yeah, he's definitely on BitChute and Rumble. So he said that Dilbert was just canceled in 77 newspapers, probably for his, I don't know, political beliefs. I mean, his political beliefs are pretty milquetoast in my opinion. Um, but because he is sort of like speaking, critically of the kind of corporate culture that he used to be a part of, and now that it's become more woke, I guess he's more vocal. Like, here's a comic strip where there's two guys and they're talking in the office, and one guy says, Dave, I need to boost your company's ESG rating, so I'm promoting you to be our CTO. And it's like a white guy saying that to a black guy. And then he says, I know you identify as white, so that won't help our ESG scores, but would it be too much trouble to identify as gay? And the black guy, who apparently identifies as white, says, depends on how hard you want me to sell it. And the other guy says, just wear better shirts. And so that's the joke, right? Because gay guys, I guess, wear nice shirts. So he has been, his comics, like, I used to like them. They were pretty funny. But this was years and years ago. I actually had one of his, you know how you could buy like a bunch of comic strips in one book?
Yeah, dude. My aunt had tons of those. I love
Yeah.
those. Like Dilbert, Garfield, Far Side. My jam was always the Far Side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she didn't own any of those. I had a science teacher in 7th grade who owned those, and I'd always stay after school to do that. And he also had a pet
to
snake.
read
He
that
was a
stuff.
really cool guy. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I got into Peanuts a lot. And also Calvin and Hobbes. So yeah, there's plenty of good stuff. Those were the main ones for me. So and I had Dilbert, but it was part of a large overhaul. Okay, he was on Fox News and he told them that his strips were banned from like 70 or so newspapers, and I understand this. I lost my TV show for being white when UPN decided it would focus on an African American audience. That was the third job I lost for being white.
Oh boy, I remember that. Like,
yeah,
there was this sudden just shift, and suddenly UPN was just, oh look, it's another show about 5 black family members living together.
Yeah.
This is the 15th time they've done this. Also, there's wrestling on Thursdays.
Yeah.
There was a joke that I remember. It was a rather spicy joke back then. It's still pretty spicy now. UPN, it stood for something. Underpaid. You can take a guess what the N stands for.
So yeah, I guess this is really, there's nothing left or else to the story except, right, Scott Adams, well known for Dilbert. Imagine Charles Schultz. He wouldn't have this problem, at least not in his day. But I think he would today if he was like still with us and still making Peanuts comics. Because the thing is that the creator of the Peanuts, Charles Schultz, he was a very religious guy. And he would like inject, his religious beliefs into his comic strips every so often. Not that often, but if you guys remember, like Peanuts Christmas specials, I mean, there was a lot of like religious stuff in them. And Charles Schultz didn't have a problem with it. Most people didn't have a problem with it. They were like, okay, kids, like when
it was never like beating you over the head with it.
No.
It was never like, really ramping it up, like showing you like this is about God, this is about Jesus, this is about the church. No, it's just like, they're gonna pray. That's nice.
Yeah,
I like that.
Yeah, and the story, if you're a child and you're watching like the Peanuts Christmas, right? when it gets heavy, like there's one special. I don't know how many they've done, but I think they've done a number of them. But there's one special where Linus is on the stage by himself, and this is the Christmas one, and he like goes into basically the birth of Christ, right? And so he's, Charles Schultz is saying, this is what Christmas is about to me. This is what I'm going to share with the audience. And that's the bit that people were, oh, you're pushing, religion on kids and all that. But the truth is that when I was a child and I saw that, I didn't even know what he was talking about. I was just looking at the animation. Like that's it. Like I was just sucked in by the fact that I was watching a cartoon in the evening.
You know where I saw that one, and this is somewhere you'd never see it today.
Cool.
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. But yeah,
and again, that was the same thing. All the other kids aren't like, oh wow, there are quite heavy political, or there are quite heavy religious overtones here. It was, we're in school and we get to watch cartoons. This is the best day of our lives.
Exactly. So it's funny because, okay, something like that could potentially be like a conversation starter. Like if you're a parent, you're watching it with your kids and they're watching it, I guess. But if they're really young, just let them enjoy the animation. Don't, they're not going to get it. But like in a few years, they might have questions and then you can like explain it to them, right? And
if they do, have a conversation about it. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, talk to your kids. Damn it. All right. So
talk to your kids, or someone you don't want to will.
Yes, exactly. So anyway, I got nothing else to add, but I just want to point out again, Scott Adams banned from a bunch of newspapers. I don't know who the hell's reading those newspapers, to be honest. Old boomers, I assume. But nonetheless, they're trying to hurt him. And speaking of like white guys not getting work, did you hear about about the channel Trigonometry?
Yes, I do.
So are you aware of the let me see if I can find his name because it just came to mind. But there was this comedian and his name is Tyler Fisher. And I guess he's a comedian and an actor. And he was involved in Hollywood and, like up and coming, like rising star, and he had like his manager or his agent or whatever. And he was trying to find work and everyone would tell him like, dude, you're great. You're going to be a star. Right. And so he's like looking for work. And then they tell him that they don't have anything for him because they're not looking for white men right now. Like
I think I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. And they said, and he was on Trigonometry talking to those two guys, and he was like, I mean, like, I don't think that anyone on the panel was angry enough at that. I mean, I'm sure that he just kind of like adapted to this reality that like, I guess white guys don't deserve work. But I was kind of amazed that like people aren't more outraged at this. I think it's disgusting. I think that it's not what we are, and I think we're all missing out. We're all missing out as a result because if the guy is really funny and talented, and I know that he's doing like online stuff, but why isn't he getting like work, right? Like maybe and not that I think Hollywood deserves that, because I don't, but it just kind of shows like we're actually kind of like we're actually kind of the word I'm looking for null or numb. We're kind of numb to this stuff, to this open hatred of white men. It's so like normal that people are just kind of shrugging and going, yeah, that makes sense. And like no one's mad about that. And this is like literally the reason why I basically don't support anything put out by Hollywood unless it's something that literally exists to go against the trends. Like I'll watch Top Gun at some point. I haven't done it yet, but But
solid like 7 out of 10 movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure it is. But yeah, I mean, like, this guy, he's literally just not getting work because he's white and a male. And I'm like, where is this going? Because that's the thing too. Like, sure, okay, this guy's like a comedian, actor, probably could be making millions. But what about a regular guy? What about a regular white guy that's just trying to support his family or maybe just support himself? Like, this is a standard that we cannot accept. Like, we cannot, and we have to be vocal. So, yeah, I was just disgusted by that. Like, and again, the attitude was so like, yeah, I guess that's how it is now, you know. And I'm just like, what are you doing? You should be much angrier. So, anyway, I'm gonna look at one more story. I think
I've got one thing interesting to point out that I just learned about today.
Okay, go ahead.
Apparently, it's a few days old, but I haven't been paying any attention to this, so I didn't know. Modern Warfare 2's, they're doing a remaster on that.
Hmm.
Yeah. To get in there and to play the multiplayer and all that good stuff. They want your phone number.
Oh, no. No.
They want your fucking phone number. What
man.
The hell?
Yeah. Modern Warfare 2 wants your phone number before you can play on PC. Out of here. Alone. Well, I was never really a COD fan anyway, but guys, don't do it. Don't.
Am I gonna have to get am I really gonna have to get a burner phone to play video games now?
Yeah, right.
Really?
That's gross, man.
That's just it.
That's gross.
It's so unnecessary.
Hmm. Yeah. I don't know what to say except I hope, because there's been all this like talk about the metaverse, for example, and I mean, like, nothing I've seen from the metaverse looks at all impressive. But even if it did, I don't think people should be on it. I think it's actually like a really bad idea, and it's a trap.
Yeah.
And
yes.
they should not get into it. So, and shit like this too. This is basically the same. It's like, why do you need anyone's phone number so that they can play on PC? I mean, that's retarded. So no, don't do it. Don't fucking do it.
What's the matter, Brian? Don't you guys have phones?
Yeah, right. Well, that is probably one of the most important pieces of geek news that I think we could possibly have delivered. Apparently, there have been GTA 6 leaks as well. And you guys,
that's all over the place.
Yeah, you can find those all over the place. I'm not interested in GTA 6 because I realized that I'm not really into open world games. So I thought I could get into it. I bought GTA 4. I know everyone says GTA 4 is not exactly the strongest game in the franchise, but I don't think that open world crap is for me. It's just like, I like having a goal and moving towards it, and then just doing that. So, but I understand that GTA 6 is going to be the first Grand Theft Auto game with a female protagonist. Yay!
Well, it's gonna be female and male protagonists, like similar to the way that GTA 5
was, so you can switch between them. Okay.
Yeah, it's gonna be, and it's funny. This is actually coming from a separate leak that happened years ago, where they were just like they whoever this person was, they didn't have a lot of details and they didn't have any proof, so they were kind of ignored.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically said, yeah, it's gonna be set in Vice City. Grand Theft Auto's not Florida.
Yeah.
and it's going to follow a male and female, like Bonnie and Clyde style couple.
Yeah.
And so
I
far,
see.
this has all been confirmed. The male character is going to be named Jason. The female character is going to be a Latinx woman named Lucia.
Yeah, I remember that too. It's gonna be a
Latinx
woman.
They've showed the map, and holy crap, they've they've got pretty much the entirety of southern Florida done.
Oh, that's where it
like
takes
you've
place?
You've got like the Keys, you've got Fort Lauderdale, you've got Miami.
All right.
That's kind of impressive.
So isn't that
right then and there?
Isn't that Vice City, or at least part of it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, it's their not Florida. It's clearly is, but they can't say that for whatever reason.
Right. Okay.
Which is funny because Vice City before was just 3 islands.
Yeah.
That's always cracked me up how like each Grand Theft Auto location is just an island.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's done to counter that, like in a Bethesda game, you finally just get to an edge in the map and it just goes, oh, can't go there, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Just to prevent you from going there, but I guess there's a psychological difference between showing you just a border where there's water, and if you try to keep flying in that direction, your plane just fucking explodes, or a wing falls off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So I got a question in the chat I thought I would respond to really quick. Jim Bottle says, Brian, is there a difference in the Hispanic community between Hispanic and Latino? I mean, in general, the way I see it is Hispanic means that you are a Spanish speaker. So your language is basically Spanish or similar to. So, for example, people in Spain are Hispanic. People in Cuba are Hispanic. People in Mexico are Hispanic. The language might be a little different, though. So there are words and, you could say euphemisms that are used by different, like Latinos or Hispanics in different countries. So Spanish language is a little different from the Caribbean language, for example, Caribbean Spanish. Latino is more like we have roots in, like our genetics go to the Latin parts of Europe, right? So basically like Spain. So I think Latino is a better word for describing the people. I think Hispanic is, like, I know people use them interchangeably, and I don't really care either way. But I think that using Latino is a little bit more precise, because it kind of like includes better like people like Mexicans and Venezuelans and people from South America and so on. Anyway, I just thought I'd explain that. Amasang gives us $2 and says, The Secret Diary of Desmond Pfeiffer. I don't know what that means, but thank you for the super chat regardless. And then I think we are going to wrap it up because I got to pick up the wife at work. But yeah, so no super chows. Anyway, so those are actually, we got through all of that. Kind of amazing.
Yeah.
It was like a
2 hours clean, not bad.
Yeah, it was like a ton of stories. So yeah, and we didn't just like run through them, right? We actually chatted about them. So I guess like with all that said, let us know what you guys think about this show, about the Nerdcast. We'll probably be doing these like once a week for the foreseeable future, until like Allison decides she wants to come back and do shows again or something. And so I'll try to like cover things that are interesting and kind of in line with what we talk about, while also being about something that's a little bit more casual, right? So thanks guys for coming on. Thank you, Mike J, for hanging out with me, especially on such on such short notice. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. hit the bell for notifications so you know when our shows go live. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed. And lastly, please share this video, because sharing is caring. Thank you guys so much for coming on today's episode of the Nerdcast, and we will talk to you all in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.